All right, and we are live. Welcome, everybody, to a live episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today, this is our special edition Friday night, TGIF, back in the day they used to call it, Week 6 live show. We're going to be here breaking down the Week 6 college football DFS main slate on DraftKings, and this show is for you guys. So if there are any questions you have, anybody you want to talk about, any particular strategy you want to talk about. If you want to talk about player props, you want to talk about underdog drafts, you want to talk about best value plays, best studs, whatever, we're here for you guys. We're going to go position by position, break down the slate. But if there's anything you guys want, make sure you let us know in the chat. And I am joined by my new weekly guest, Zach Green, aka Big Country DFS. Zach, how you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me again. Haven't been fired yet, so it's nice.
So how is normally we do this and we talk about the Friday slate, but we're on Friday night now. So how's the Friday night slate looking for you?
Well, so far it's decent. I only have Norton and Neptune going right now in my lineups because I was very heavy on the San Jose State, New Mexico, and it's just such a weird day with this game. Is this probably going to end before the other games even start?
Yeah, it's weird. It's I don't know why they didn't include the Delaware game. Because personally, it would have been the highest total of the night. Both of those are two teams that we would get to see in midweek play in a week. And so it just felt weird that they didn't include those. So I wish they would have. And you see people in the chat talk about Rod Gainey. Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. I didn't see that one coming. I was not active. I have not been watching my Charlotte 49ers. Thank the Lord I haven't been watching them. I'd probably be ready to pull my hair out if I was. But I've been at the homecoming football game for my high school tonight. So I set my lineups in early. I got them in and hadn't even had a chance to watch. Just got home, just got the kids to bed, and now hopped on here with you. So we'll see how it goes because I had a lot of Byron Brown, I had a lot of Norton, and I had a lot of Neptune, which those seem to be like the three guys you wanted so far. So, I don't want to jinx anything, but if everybody that I have on Friday night, late part of the slate, can play like those three, I'm going to be pretty good shape. All right, so I see we got some people joining us in the chat. I see we got Brett. Brett's become a regular here. Happy to have you, Brett, as well as Chunk the Deuce and my guy Cam, a.k.a. C Thuggin. Happy to have you guys all join us. And the Rod Gainey thing, really killing people tonight, which stinks because he did shape up to be a fairly good play on paper. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive into this main slate. Now, I will say one thing about this slate. I have gotten to work early, right? I have already made my core. I haven't posted the article yet to Patreon because I'm still typing it up. I know you've made your core as well, Zach. I think there is an overarching strategy to this slate that I am going to try to employ, if at all possible, with my lineups. Do you have any global takeaways looking at this slate as a whole?
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if we're kind of similar or not, because I kind of have the same idea, and it's probably going to be something that a lot of people aren't doing.
Okay, what you thinking?
So for me, at least initially, I think I'm going to fade all of the running backs over 8,000 because
interesting strategy.
Washington is questionable. He screwed everyone last week. And then Love, his price has finally got to where it needs to be. It still should be higher. But again, most of that scoring is on touchdowns. And it's a split. It's still a split. Same thing with Singleton. It's still a split. I actually like Allen for a whole lot less than Singleton because Allen's been getting like 15 plus a game.
I agree with that as well.
So the one guy that I am considering playing is Haynes at 8,000. But otherwise, mostly, if I do Love, it's probably going to be one of those where I played in cash because of the, 50% ownership and just fade in GPP and hope he comes down to earth. And because that TD regression is going to come eventually.
Oh yeah, and that's certainly going to happen. I'm kind of, I don't want to say the opposite of you, but I think this is a great slate to play multiple high-priced running backs. Now, I'm not even going to say above 8K, but multiple 6K and above running backs in the same lineup. I just love all these guys near the top, no pun intended. I like Jeremiah Love taking on Boise. Yes, the salary is steep. Yes, the touchdown regression is real, but I think it's an incredible matchup, and I think the Irish are going to run it up. I love Justice Haynes. I love Dylan Edwards. I love Adam Randall. I can even get behind Ismail Mahdi at 6,100. I can even get behind Isaac Brown as a GPP play at 6,700. This is going to be a slate where I am very much paying up at running back, and that is going to dictate what has to happen with the rest of my lineup. Be kind of the interesting takeaway for me is like as I'm hand building and as I'm building with the optimizer, how does my love of these running backs affect the rest of my lineup? And I kind of already have an idea in mind.
So I want to address the question here. Why no Wisner Love? Wisner and Baxter are actually both questionable, so that's something we're gonna have to watch for.
Yeah, it's a situation where if we knew how the injuries were going to play out, we'd have a much better way to project it. Like if I knew that Wisner was going to play and Baxter was going to not play, I would love Wisner. I think he's one of the top plays on the slate because he has a role in the passing game. He's going up against a Florida defense that is good but has not really seen an offense like Texas yet. And I think that if we knew the injury situation, that'd be a lot easier to predict. I think that's a very good bring up. But, I'm just saying why we haven't really gotten on him because we just don't know if he's going to be in, if Baxter's going to be in. It's just a hard situation to discuss.
Well, I just looked it up, and actually, I guess Baxter was ruled out.
Baxter was ruled out?
I hadn't really looked at the news yet. But also, Florida, while they haven't been great, LSU and Miami, they just didn't put up, 45 plus on them. And so I also like a guy like Bowens right around the price of Wisner because he seems to be the guy now at Georgia. And so not saying you don't play him at all, but there's just a lot of other plays. That total is also 43. So it's just going to be one of those ugly games, which we haven't gone over that. I know we go over the stacks here in a minute.
So let's go ahead and transition on over now then. In terms of game stacks, I think there's like one super obvious game that everybody's going to want to stack in the Baylor-Kansas State game. But I think that there are two other games that I'm going to be looking at. I'm definitely going to have some stacks of Alabama-Vanderbilt just because of the craziness that happened with that game last year. And I'm definitely going to have some stacks of Illinois-Purdue, also a game that went crazy last year. Also, Illinois still having a ton of injuries in the secondary, which is just going to majorly affect that pass defense, which should allow their games to shoot out. So those are the games I'm kind of looking at as a stack. Do you have any kind of different thoughts on that?
So the only other one, well, actually two, Louisville, Virginia, because I think both teams don't know how to play defense. And we saw that last week with Virginia just getting lit up by Florida State. Mm-hmm. And so that's actually one of my receivers from Louisville's in the core. We'll see later. Yes. And then the other one that I think is kind of sneaky because if you look at the thing, it's total of 52.5, but it's Iowa State and Cincinnati.
I like that one as well.
Yeah, Cincinnati has been getting shredded. Jalen Daniels just threw for 450 yards on them. And speaking of that, Rocco Beck has probably lowest price in a couple of years. And then Sorsby's been great too.
The interesting part about that one is like both of these defenses are like the bend but don't break defense, but like they're bending a crap ton. Like they're giving like an offense these short and intermediate passes, and they're giving the offense numbers in the box for the run game. Kind of the behest of giving up explosive plays. And even last week, Cincinnati still gave up 2 explosives to Emmanuel Henderson. Like this is a game where both of these teams are going to be able to move the ball up and down the field on each other. And you're looking at a situation where both guys very clearly have quarterbacks that you can play. I think that both sides have good receiving options, even though Iowa State, not known for their receiving options, I think there's one that I'm going to mention that is definitely going to make my big part of my player pool. All right, so now we talked about the game environments. So let's go ahead now and talk about So getting a ton of questions in the chat, which is great. Yeah. Keep them coming, guys. We'll try to get caught up and hit guys as we go on. I'm seeing people talk about Sam Jackson. He is going to come up. I'm seeing people talk about all kinds of things that is going to come up. I will address this one now. Can you play Love and Price together? I'm going to say no, because I think the ceiling is capped. Like, they've kind of both combined for 12 touchdowns over the last 2 games, which is crazy. But like, if you look at their DraftKings totals, it's still kind of capped at that ceiling, which is the last 2 games, which would be a very high ceiling, but you're not guaranteed that they're going to get that. So I think it would be tough to play them together. I probably wouldn't do it. I think it's a viable pathway if you think Notre Dame's just going to run all over them to play them, but I do think you're capping your own ceiling if you do that, because it's not like they're going to account for 10 touchdowns together.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You basically need every touchdown for Notre Dame to be Love or Price for that to happen. Yeah. And Carr's not a bad quarterback. He's still going to probably throw for 1 or 2. And with playing them both together, I believe Price is 5,800, and you can get Katron Allen for 57 right there. And you get Penn State exposure and exposure to Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's just a tricky spot to try to play both. So now let's go ahead and talk about quarterbacks. So what I was noticing when I was writing out my core earlier, was my wish to get exposure to the high-priced running backs is limiting who I can get to at quarterback. And that doesn't necessarily just mean because of the quarterback, but it also means because of their stacking partner as well, right? So like, I love Ty Simpson this week at $7,300, but if I'm playing all the expensive running backs, I can't get to Ty Simpson and Jeremy Bernard, right? So it's just a different kind of quarterback slate to me, because I'm really having to pick my spots with the pricing of the guys that I want to play. So who's standing out to you right away at quarterback, Zach?
Okay, so I'm pretty much agree. There's only one guy that I'm like, I really got to play him that's over 7,600.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably know who it is. But Rocco Beck is my top quarterback, because people – I don't know what DraftKings does. It's like they just take zero consideration of the fact of who these guys are playing and what type of game environment and stuff. He's been over 22 DraftKings points in 3 out of 4 games. That alone should put you at like 7,100. So immediately, first thing, he's like $1,000 too cheap. And Cincinnati, we just saw them get shredded. They've been getting shredded. And he doesn't run a whole lot, but he can run when he needs to. And so he could sneak a rushing touchdown in there too. And so I think he's just too cheap. It's a safe cash floor, and I still think it has upside too.
Correct. And, saying that he has upside, the crazy part of that is like, you don't need 40 from Becht for him to be considered a great play. He's at $6,100. If he just gives you a game of like 28, that would be equivalent to Arch Manning getting like 42 in terms of a points per dollar basis. So you don't need this incredible 400-yard, 5-touchdown game out of Rocco Becht. You just need a solid 25, 28 fantasy points, and you are going to be really living in that regard. Darren brings up a great point. He says, what if Iowa State scores rushing touchdowns? Looking at recent Cincinnati games, Cincinnati's much more prone to the air than on the ground, especially when you look like what happened last week with Kansas, when we had chalk running back LaShawn Williams that we both liked, and they couldn't get him going at all. And it was Jalen Daniels, dual threat quarterback, doing it all with his arm against him. So it's certainly a possibility, especially because when they get in that red zone, they love to run Carson Hansen. So it's a possibility, but I think it's more likely than not that Becht is the one accounting for those touchdowns. I really like his counterpart on the other side of that game, Brendan Sorsby. I just think you look at this game log, this is not a $6,800 player. He's just not. And the Cincinnati offense has been really good. He's got clear stacking partners. I think this is like all systems go for both quarterbacks in this game. I don't necessarily know if you have to play both of them together in the same lineup, but I think both the quarterbacks in that game shape up to be the best point per dollar plays on the slate.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but the last 2 weeks in my cash lineups, I've had quarterbacks very low owned go off. Chambliss, when everybody was chalked 2 weeks ago, nobody played him last week, he went off. And then 2 weeks ago was Stockton, and he went crazy. Correct. It was the same thing. Price immediately stood out. And like we said, 20 to 30 is 4 or 5x for Rocco Becht's price. And then it allows you to get so much because there's also some receivers I want to pay up for too. And the other thing is the way that Cincy plays with the pass and trying to, whenever Kansas was throwing all over the place, then they were trying to, back guys up in the secondary. And so that allowed Daniels to take off, and he ended up with like 60 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
And Beck can do that when he needs to if guys are covered. And so any extra bonus there, and I agree too, Sorsby's still a great play. I'm not going to just fade him this week just because it's Iowa State. I think it's a good game.
Mm-hmm. So now let's transition off of that game. I'm going to bring up probably two more guys here before we get off of quarterbacks. If there's anybody you guys want us to talk about, let us know in the chat at the quarterback position for now. And then we'll move on to the running backs again and then talk wideouts. So I think kind of a sneaky GPP play is Ryan Brown of Purdue, just because I think that most people out there that play college football DFS, they don't think Purdue's any good. They don't think Purdue has any offense. And Ryan Brown has been pretty solid so far this season. He had like 40 DraftKings points last year against Illinois. I just looked at the box score earlier today, and I had trouble counting how many DraftKings points he had in that game because he just did everything. Touchdowns both ways, over 300 yards passing. Like, he just was great in that game. And Illinois still beat up in the secondary. I think it's a great matchup for Ryan Brown. And again, he's another guy that there at 6,600 allows you to get up to the high price running backs that we like.
Yeah. Brown's one of those guys, like you mentioned, he always goes overlooked, but he's been producing. He's been solid, and I could see using him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because Illinois, they haven't been great. And he's, again, kind of like Beck. He's averaging 23 and a half DraftKings. I mean, he's not been below 18. Even
right.
in, Purdue, they got smoked by Notre Dame, and they pretty much weren't in the game at all against USC. But because of that volume, he's getting there.
Yeah, and just the cost is everything, right? Like that's almost more important to me this slate than anything is the fact that I can get to him and I can even play a cheap Purdue receiver with him, and I can still get to the guys I like at running back. Now, one more guy I will bring up. This one's a little more of a wild card. How you feeling about Diego Pavia this week?
I like Pavia. I mean, I always kind of like him with his running ability. And it's interesting to see because, Bama, they were getting run all over by Florida State. They've been playing a little bit better recently.
Mm-hmm.
If it was at Vandy, I'd probably feel more comfortable than it being at Bama. But I'm still going to try to play him some.
I feel like I can't not play him, if that makes sense. Like, just you look at Bama's history against Russian quarterbacks, right? They struggled in the bowl game against Michigan last year against Alex Orji. They struggled against Jackson Arnold. They struggled against Diego Pavia. This year, week one, a whole offseason to prepare, they struggled against Tommy Castellanos. I just don't know if Kalen DeBoer and his defensive coordinator at Alabama have figured out how to stop a zone read mobile quarterback, and Pavia lit him up last year. Granted, Alabama's going to come in motivated. They're going to be at home. They're not probably going to let Vanderbilt win this game. Vanderbilt doesn't have to win for Pavia to score 25, 30 DraftKings points.
Yeah. It's not like Bama has just been lights out. I mean, look, I'm pulling up real quick, so I don't ever want to speak anything wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
But against Georgia, they did kind of shut Stockton down, but also he didn't really need to pass because Bowens was going for 120 yards. But when he did pass, Young and Branch, they averaged 15 and 12 yards a catch. So, I mean, they're, like you said, they're still going to be open.
Mm-hmm. So let's get caught up on the comments here because that's kind of the last guy I wanted to bring up, and then I'm going to ask you one more question before we go.
Okay, so, I got one more guy too.
You got one more guy? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if he comes up. So Salonev says Ty Simpson too cheap. I agree completely. I think that I'm going to have some Bama Vandy game stacks. Those are going to be the lineups where I kind of get away from my expensive running back strategy. I like it. I think he is way too cheap. Alvin saying he likes Sawyer Robertson. I like Robertson if Washington is out. Because if Washington is out, it's going to end up like we saw last week where all of the yardage, all the touchdowns are going to filter back to the passing game, and that will allow him to hit for his salary because he's really expensive. You really got to save to get up there. And then Salonev talking about Manning. this was going to be the guy I was going to bring up. I think if you're looking for like a mega 1% owned new GPP play, there's a chance it could be Arch Manning because everybody's hating on him. He's $9,000. He's going up against Florida. Quinn Ewers last year had his game of the season against Florida, passing for 5 touchdowns. I just think that if you're looking for a guy that's 1% owned that could end up getting there, he could be that guy. Do I think it's an optimal play? No. But do I think it's a play with a ton of ceiling? Yes. So do you have a guy like that would be like your mega low-owned GPP play?
Well, so first I was going to mention real quick because we have some ownership from the side I look at. And I was liking Simpson a lot more until I seen that he's now projected to be the highest owned quarterback.
That's what I'm looking at as well.
It's not bad. Like we said, having the chalk is not bad. But again, you don't want to have both chalk quarterbacks, both chalk running backs, and then throw in chalk receivers. So it's all about where you're going to get different in your lineups. But the guy for me, and it looks like he's not going to be as low owned as I would hope, is Cade Klubnik because they're coming off a bye. And this is North Carolina. Belichick has not been doing good. They've been getting shredded. And so this is the time to get Klubnik, get him right in a game here. But again, there's so many guys under 8,000. It just makes Klubnik and Manning and Carr and some of these other guys, you're like, why do I want to spend that much? Because if I spend that much, they have to get 30 plus or I'm sank.
And I think that makes them kind of more appealing in the GPP format because they're going to be low owned. Like if you happen to play Cade Klubnik and he gets you 35 and some of the chalk high price running backs and receivers bust, that's going to be the nuts, right? like last week, it was kind of the exact inverse. Last week, we ran into a situation where you pretty much had to have Love and Lemon together if you wanted to cash because they were really high owned. They just absolutely nuked. Even though Lemon was like asleep for half, I was getting real nervous for a half there. And then he just exploded. But you just ended up with a situation where it was so obvious chalk that hit that you kind of had to have them. I don't know if that's going to be the case every single week, right? Like it's not going to be that easy every single week. So if you want to get different, one way you can do it this week is by playing a high-priced quarterback and not getting to the high-priced running backs.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm seeing here. I just sorted by salary, and Robertson 4%, Carr 3%, Manning sub 1%, Fafita 10%, Aller 3%, Altmaier 5%, Stockton 9%. And it isn't until you get to
hold on, one thing. You said Aller 3%?
Yeah.
3%?
That's what it's showing right now.
Oh my God, who are those 3% of people and where can I play them in head-to-heads? I mean, they're just throwing money down the drain. Yeah. Like I'm in no disrespect to Drew Hauer's game, but that price tag and the way they run their offense, just that's terrible.
Like, yeah, well, and not only that, they project him for over 20 points, and it's like he hasn't scored above 17 in a single game. How do you come up with this 20-point projection?
I know UCLA is terrible, but it just feels like that's going to be a game where they can just hand off to Singleton and Allen all game.
Yeah, they don't need to pass. Kind of like Notre Dame last week. They were just going off on Arkansas on their ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it all just depends on how you're doing your lineups. If you're getting low owned at running back, then get those high owned, low price quarterbacks. But if you're getting high owned running backs, you can get the lower owned guys up there.
Darren accusing me of being an Aller hater. I have said time and time again, I think he will be an okay NFL quarterback, but I think in college football, DFS, college football, fantasy leagues, best ball, he's not a good play in those just because of how they run their offense. It's not unlike J.J. McCarthy a few years back where you could tell that kid can play, but they're just not having him put up any kind of stats. And DFS is all about stats. So it's just not for me. But hey, if anybody wants to find the Drew Aller current Heisman odds, I can explain what will happen, like in terms of what those odds mean if you want to bet on Drew Aller to win the Heisman. All right. Anyway, let's go and move on to running backs. So we hit it a little bit earlier. So let's play a little game here. So you said that you're likely not going to go above 8K for running backs. So let's do it this way. Let's say the cutoff point is $7,500. Who is your favorite running back at 7,500 or above. You can pick any of them.
Probably the same guy. We're probably thinking the same guy, Dylan Edwards. He's one of the best running backs in college football when he's healthy, and he's hadn't been healthy. Yeah, he hadn't been healthy until last week, and he went off for 166 and a touchdown. And now he gets Baylor, who is one of the worst running defenses in America. We saw, even with how terrible Oklahoma State has been all year, Howland and Fields. Fields was in the passing game, and then Howland had plenty of yards on the touchdowns. And so this price is just too cheap. It's one of those guys that, it's kind of like Love last week. Love's price was a lot less, and so now Edwards is the guy. The price is too cheap for the volume he's going to see.
So it just feels like everything's pointing towards Dylan Edwards this game. I think that schematically it's a good game too, because you look at what's done in Baylor, and it's been offenses that have quarterbacks that are running threats. Like you think back to Auburn in week 1, it was Jackson Arnold that ran all over him, not the running back, but they were still running zone read off of inside zone concepts. And it was just that again and again and again and again. And that's what Kansas State does because they have Avery Johnson. And so I just think that you're going to see a ton of explosive runs from Dylan Edwards. And I think that you're going to see a ton of points scored in that game. And it definitely makes for a very stackable environment also because of the fact that we get we get the Baylor offense that runs at, one of the fastest tempos in the nation. It's just a great environment.
Yeah. So I just love that.
So now let's pivot, right? So I see we got Darren in the chat saying, give me all Justice Haynes. Michigan rides him. I like Haynes as well. That game though, man, like Wisconsin's offense is so bad and Michigan's so conservative. I would be worried that if Michigan goes up like 10-0, they're just going to be content to just like run the clock out. Like they don't need to do a whole lot to win that game.
Yeah. That kind of worries me a little bit too, because like Central Michigan, whenever they won 63-3, he only had 14 carries. I mean, he still had 100 yards and a touchdown. And then the Nebraska game, he needed that 75-yard touchdown to hit value,
which was so glorious when it happened. Yeah. Like I just remember watching it. Just yes.
So I'm not saying don't play him. Like he's still a great GPP play, but that's what makes him a GPP play because he's relied on those long runs to be able to pay off value.
All right, so now let's switch it up. So we did 7,500 and above, right? So now I see we got a few nominees in the chat already. Huncho saying Katron Allen and Isaac Brown. Salanev, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, saying Adam Randall. So who's your favorite 7,500? Let me make it mid-range. We'll go 7,500 to 6,000, and then we'll do a cheapy one as well. 7,500 to 6,000, who you got?
Okay, mine is Ishmael Mahdi.
I like it.
6,100. As we know, Oklahoma State's defense is so horrible. Right after they fired Gundy, they let Baylor throw for have 500 yards offense. So then they fired their defensive coordinator as well. Mm-hmm. And Mahdi is Arizona's finally realizing he's the guy. He had 22 carries for 189 against Kansas State and 13 for 85 against Iowa State. And if you guys remember, he was at Texas State in 2023. He was a 1,300-yard rusher, and then he ran for 1,000 yards in 2024. So it's not like it's not like he's just a scrub. He's a guy that's gonna. The one thing I will say that we need to watch for, I still don't think it affects him too much because he's been playing so well, is Reese Kano is supposed to be back. So that could affect a little bit. That's
a weird one, though, because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Reese Kano supposed to be back last week and wasn't? So I don't know. These Big 12 injury reports, they've been so fraudulent because Utah did it to us with Devin Dampier that they come out after the game when they got walloped by Texas Tech. Oh, Dampier didn't practice all week. And it's like, what do we have an injury report for if you're not going to actually force teams to report it correctly? So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with Riscano. If someone from the Arizona staff could tell me, hey, Riscano is going to be out, I would love Mahdi. I would love him. It's just an absolute smash spot. He breaks off explosive runs. I think he's a really good play. We said 7,500 was the cutoff, right? That was our cutoff?
Yes. So 6 to 7,500.
Okay. You know where I'm going?
I have an idea, kind of.
Who you think?
Where was it?
I might have told you already. I don't
Oh,
remember.
yeah. Isaac Brown.
No.
No?
So, I think Isaac Brown is a GPP nuke play. Nobody's going to play him. Nobody's going to touch him. And he's going to be super low owned, super high upside, super risk reward play. I think he's great for that, though. Don't play him in cash, play him in GPP. He's going to be great for that. And then Adam Randall is my guy. I just think you look at the total workhorse usage, right? Like, he's carried the ball over 50 times this season. No other Clemson back is top 3. Like, workhorse running back. That's what we like to see. And against North Carolina, we talked about Klubnik having a big game. What if it's the ground game with Randall? Like, what if Randall continues to see this workhorse usage? He gets in the end zone a few times, gets to 100 yards, and that's I just think there's a ton of upside there, and I don't think he's going to be as highly owned as Mahdi. I think Mahdi probably on paper is the better play, but I think Randall, I really do like the upside there.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Clemson has just been, and it's not just this year. Whenever they had Maffa and those other guys, ETN, they've just been relying on these bell cow running backs.
Yeah. Yeah, like you think about 2 and 3 years ago, how much were we paying for Maffa and Shipley and those guys? Like, it was not 6,700. Yeah. And Salinev, I apologize for the mispronunciation of your name. I do apologize. And then we got Darren in the chat saying "Bop" by Hanson. I do believe that was the song in the early 90s that they were like kids, right? Going bop, da, 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 something like that, maybe. I think he's right. I think Darren's right. That was the song. Anyway, I'm not in on Carson Hansen, by the way.
Yeah.
So now let's go ahead and carry on now to the low-priced running back. So 6,000 and below, we're each going to take one. You want to go first for this one?
I'll let you go first, just because I have one guy.
Okay,
maybe the same guy.
I like Trent Howland.
Yeah.
So like,
that's a good one.
I know he's like your team, so you got a little bit, maybe have a little bit of inside knowledge here with me. I just think that the workhorse usage he saw last week, like, the thing you have to remember is that when teams fire a coach mid-season, you end up with a situation where sometimes the new staff has their guys, right? Or, it's this position coach that's like, hey, I've always wanted to play this guy, and now we have this chance to. And Howland kind of feels like that to me. I also think Arizona is not exactly a team of world beaters, not exactly a defense that I fear. So I think the $3,800 for a guy that's going to be the workhorse running back on his team and seriously has quarterback issues, we're going to talk about that here in a second. Yeah, I think that he's the guy that I'm looking at as the low-priced option.
Yeah, the only thing I will say, just being an Oklahoma State fan, is we still don't really know what's going on. Hicks, there's rumor he's going to transfer. Freddie Brock, though, he's supposed to come back in this game. And Fields, like Cam's saying, Fields, it's like Meacham just prefers him to be a pass catcher. It's almost like
that's what I thought.
He doesn't like his receivers, and so he's using Fields as a pass catcher, which he still did great with passing game, and you get that PPR. But it does look like Howland's going to be the guy, and I think with Brock back, that Fields just is not going to get any carries because they just prefer to use him as receiver.
Fields will probably still make my pool, for the record. There's not a lot of cheapies out there at running back, and I think there's going to be a ton of popular cheapies at receiver. So Fields will probably make my pool. So I'm not totally off of that with you, Cam. All right, so who you got as your cheap running back, Zach?
So mine is going to be Katron Allen because
I like it.
Anytime you get a running back by committee and two guys are priced so far apart from each other like that, I always go with the cheaper guy. And Allen, it's not like he hasn't been doing anything. He's gotten average of 17 DraftKings, 16.6 to be exact. But he's got a touchdown in every single game. He's averaging 4 or 5 yards plus a carry every time. Because these teams that have two backs like Love and Price and Singleton and Allen, they just prefer to run it that way. They want both guys fresh all the time, so they like to just have an even split. And so there's just no reason for me to consider Singleton right there, especially if Washington plays at the price for 200 less. And then you can get his teammate, and maybe not as much upside, but it's still going to be a decent floor for the price.
So all of the advanced metrics love Katron Allen. Like when you look at like yards after contact, missed tackle rate, stuff like that, it's all favoring Katron Allen too, which means that in terms of if workload is exactly equal, you might as well go with the more efficient player, right? And that's been Katron Allen this season. And oh, by the way, their price is not equal. He's almost $3,000 cheaper. So it just seems like a no-brainer to me to play him over Singleton. Now, watch us say all this and watch tomorrow be the Nick Singleton show. And Nick Singleton is like having a Heisman caliber performance. But just all we can do is look at the data, look at the numbers we have, and all that data points towards Allen to me.
Yeah, and then we have one more question. Let me try to pronounce it.
Salinev.
Salinev, yeah.
Yeah, I think we got that.
So as of now, and I think this could change with the news of Baxter, but as of now, Wisner is only projected to be 2%. And so that is a great GPP play. If that stands at that percent, I'm definitely going to have some of that too.
I agree. I still like – let me think the best way to phrase this. I still think this Texas offense is being underrated. I know. I'm a Texas fan, right? They hadn't looked great against Ohio State, but it was Ohio State. Like, I think this Texas offense could really take off. And we remember from last year, Wisner had a huge passing game role. I'm with Salinev. I think that is certainly a very rocky path. There's certainly so many ways it could go wrong, but great GPP play, ton of upside on that Texas offense this week for me.
Yeah, and then looks like one more question about Taylor. And I'll be honest, I'll defer this to you because I don't really just know a lot about Virginia.
So I watched the Florida State game last week, and I watched the NC State game weeks before, right? If you had just watched those two games, then you would think that Taylor was like their workhorse running back, RB1, no doubt, right? It's the games that have been lopsided when they've really spread around the carries. They really trust Taylor in close games. So if you think that this game shoots out, if you think that this game is close, or if you think that Virginia plays from like slightly ahead, I think that Taylor is not a bad option. I do think that apples to apples, I would rather have Isaac Brown because I've seen it more and I know the ownership is going to be really low. But I do think Taylor is worth playing. That's just kind of how I'm viewing it. Like if the game stays close, if the game shoots out, he's worth a look.
Yeah, and then one more guy, just real quick, is Maccabee. I know I liked him a lot against USC, and he didn't do great, but he does get a lot of volume, and so in this type of matchup, this could be one where he does well. I mean, he's averaging 18 points a game. Even against Notre Dame, they finally – oh, that makes me so mad. He gets 0 catches against USC, and that's what I was banking on to not be game scripted out. And then finally the coach realizes he gets 7 catches for 56 yards against Notre Dame. So as long as that keeps up and the coach doesn't have his head in the sand, that's a decent play there. So
I also went back and looked it up. So do you remember the Illinois-Purdue game last year?
Yeah, that game I think went kind of crazy.
It went crazy, 50-49 in overtime, right? Illinois went for 2, or somebody went for 2, and that was the difference. In that game, Maccabee, 102 rushing yards, touchdown. 3 catches, 31 receiving yards, touchdown. So just doing the quick math, that's 19, 22, 25, 31 DraftKings points last year against Illinois. That's not nothing. And, if I'm, banging the drum for Ryan Brown earlier, then I got to also kind of bang the drum for Devin Maccabee, because like we talked about on this show last week, do you remember exactly what we said about LaShawn Williams?
Yeah, it's been a long week, so I don't.
So we were both like LaShawn Williams is core, but sometimes what you should do if you really like a guy like that is you should just play the other side of the game, because sometimes that's what goes off, because the offense has success, but that player doesn't. And who was one of the best quarterback plays last week? Jalen Daniels, right? So if I really like Ryan Brown, I should also find a little bit of exposure to Devin Mockbee, just because what if the offense has success in a way that I'm not picturing?
Yeah, that's pretty much, I think, everyone. Bowens, I kind of mentioned. I just don't have a strong lean one way or the other. And Georgia's just going to use a ton of guys too.
I don't like that Georgia Kentucky game. I think I'm probably just going to cross it all off.
Yeah,
like Georgia Kentucky, for years it's the game where Georgia plays with their food and they win like 13-3 or 13-10, and like, I don't know, maybe they do something different because they're coming off the Alabama loss, but I don't know. I think you could totally cross that game off and not miss anybody.
Yeah, I agreed. It's just the running backs have had success against Kentucky. That's the only reason I mentioned that.
Yeah, that's true. That is also true. And it does look like Bowens is trending towards being the guy. So if you're going to play one of them, it's Bowens, in my opinion. All right, now let's switch on over to the receivers. So we got a lot to talk about here, but this is pretty much going to take us to the end, right? So at the receiver position, I'm seeing just a ton of cheapies that a lot of people are getting to. None of them individually appeared to be like all that chalky, but there's just a ton of cheapies because it seems like the strategy is kind of following what I mentioned earlier, where if you get to the expensive running backs, you're going to have to get to the cheap receivers. So with that being said, is there anybody that is like a highly priced receiver that you're looking at?
So right off the bat, the one guy that I'm looking at is Antonio Williams at 7,800. He returned against Syracuse. They kind of eased him in, but he had 5 for 49, and now coming off a bye week, I'm sure that they're going to have stuff scripted up for him. And Klubnik, they've always had that chemistry. As long as he stays healthy, it's like a thing with him. Every couple of games, he just gets hurt. And so I like it for GPPs, especially like you said, everybody's going cheap.
What I like about Williams is it's really easy to get him the football. He has a super low ADOT. The PPR scoring does wonders for him. He's just easy to get to in a real football game. He's easy to get to in DFS for that reason for me. And so I'm with you. I think if I'm playing any Clemson receiver stacking with Klubnik, I'm probably going to roll with Williams as the primary stacking partner. I loved Wesco until they started pricing him up. Now he doesn't look so great now that he's 7,300 to me.
Yeah.
Now, I will say the other one that I want to get to, and we got Jeremy in the chat mentioning it. I like Jeremy Bernard. I think that he is the wide receiver one in this Bama offense. I kind of alluded to this in best ball drafts in the offseason. I'm not a Ryan Williams guy. I think the dude had one really cool catch and run against Georgia and is still living off of that. His last 10 games or whatever have not been great. And he randomly pops off every now and then. That's why he's priced so high. But it's not been great for him. Jeremy Bernard is the more consistent option. I think the way you're going to want to attack Vandy is through that secondary, and I think that Jeremy Bernard getting into those kind of intermediate routes that we saw Ryan Grubb dial up for Michael Penix and Jalen McMillan in Washington, that's kind of going to be what they're going to do for Bernard here in this one. And I think it's a great spot for him. I'm absolutely with you on that one, Jeremy.
Yeah, Bernard, that's one thing about Bama is they always seem to have a guy that you can just rely on every week to just throw in your cash lineup because the floor is just so great. And Bernard is that guy this year. 21 points a game, and he doesn't even need the touchdowns all the time because against Florida State, he had 8 for 146, didn't score. And so it's just one of those guys with a super safe floor, but the price is also not killing you like, Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams prices are up there.
Yeah, 100%. And to kind of add on to that point, I think you can get to him in playing the high-priced running backs. I don't know if you can play 3 high-priced running backs in Bernard, but you can definitely play 2 high-priced running backs in Bernard. I've made builds with that. So I do think he's a very easy guy to get to in that regard. All right, now let's go ahead and have a quick little debate here because we both have one mid-range receiver that we love. We've kind of talked about it already in a way. You love Colin Lacey this week. Make the case for him.
Okay, so Lacey and Bell both they've just been most of the offense for Louisville in the passing game. Bell has 36 targets and 23 catches, and Lacey has 30 targets and 22 catches. So again, it's like Allen and Singleton.
Mm-hmm.
That it's almost the same volume, yet the price is not the same. And the price is different because Bell scored 2 touchdowns on the season. Lacey hasn't scored yet. And so, again, it's a safe volume with Lacey to be safe enough in cash games. Only the James Madison game, that was kind of a down game. But other than that, he's been over 15 points a game. And that's exactly what you want for cash lineup at this price.
Right. So I'm going to now make my case for my mid-range guy. Some of y'all might know where this is. This guy really rewarded me last week. Cyrus Allen. So, just thinking schematically about what we had with Cincinnati and the way they played against Kansas and what they do against the Iowa State defense, it's the short and intermediate targets, right? And Iowa State is not going to give you those deep shots. They're going to be without their starting corners. They're going to do everything they can to just not give up an 80-yard touchdown. Who does that open things up for? Cyrus Allen underneath, over the middle, getting a ton of targets. He's significantly their target leader on the season now, and he's a very cheap stacking partner for Brendan Sorsby. I love Cyrus Allen this week. I'm definitely going to be playing some Sorsby lineups with tight end Joe Royer for that same reason, because everything that Allen can do, Royer does from his tight end position. And then I'm certainly going to be playing some stacks with Jeff Caldwell as well, because he has a really high target rate. He's just not on the field all the time. What if they finally decide to just kind of take the reins off of Jeff Caldwell? So I'm definitely going to be having some Sorsby stacks with some of those other guys. But I do love Cyrus Allen.
And I think this question is why not play both in regards to Bell and Lacey. Now, if you're stacking Louisville game, I don't mind doing that. But I'm more
Agreed.
I talk more from the cash perspective. Mike talks more from the GPP perspective. Mm-hmm. And in cash, you don't ever, in my opinion anyways, you don't ever want to do 2 receivers from the same team because you just kind of have to have them both get there.
I think the time you would want to do it in cash was back when Mario Craver was really cheap. You could get him and Concepcion for an insane discount.
Yeah, if one of them's below 4,000, and the other one,
I see what Stino's saying. He's saying, why not play Lacey now? And yeah, y'all can absolutely.
Oh yeah.
We were just making our case against each other there. But yeah, absolutely, play both of them. We both have a case for him, right? That's the whole point.
Allen exploded last week. I like him.
Yeah, he won me a lot of money last week. Last week made up for a lot of bad slates. Last Friday's slate was really bad for me. The last 2 Saturdays ago, the night slate was really bad for me. Last Saturday, the Sorsby Allen stack with Love and Lemon made me a lot of money, right? It got me back all those losses. So now let's kind of switch gears. Let's talk about the cheapies, right? Because there's a ton of them on this slate that are options. So if you're watching here with us in the chat, tell us, what cheap receiver are you playing here on this slate? And we'll kind of kick things off. Zach, do you have a favorite of the cheap receivers? Because I've got one in mind.
Yeah, so I have a couple guys. But first I was just going to say, I don't know about you, but for me, other than Lacey and Allen, I'm kind of leaning towards either high-priced receivers or the cheap ones, below 5.
I agree. I don't like a whole lot in the mid-range.
Yeah, other than basically between Lacey's price and between Bernard, I don't really see much that I like in between there. But I got a couple guys. So first, with how Clemson's defense has been, even though North Carolina's offense hasn't been great, is I kind of like Ship, especially if Max Johnson plays, because he's going to be more of a passer than Lopez was.
Number one wide receiver at 3,300 against Clemson, not a bad look.
Yeah. And then the other guy is one that we've already seen in the chat, being an Oklahoma State fan, is Sam Jackson.
Yes, I was going to say, I've been waiting to talk about this guy all night and waiting to hear your thoughts on him because the stories that I'm reading are weird.
Okay, so going back a little bit of history here, he was actually a quarterback coming out of high school and was recruited to play quarterback. He played quarterback, and when he switched to receiver was when he was at TCU with Doug Meacham, who is now the interim coach. So he has that history with him. And they used him in the passing game, and he actually had a touchdown last week. So he only had 2 catches, but he scored 9 DraftKings points because he threw a touchdown pass. And anytime, we've had this happen on occasion, anytime you're getting a receiver that can play some quarterback, that's like a cheat code for DFS. That's getting a third quarterback, but at the receiver position. And I'm not saying he's going to go out, and they're going to start him over Flores, but they obviously came out and they had designed plays with him as the passing quarterback on the plays.
Correct. And it's one of those things that could win you a GPP, right? Is just taking that chance and getting it right. And even if it doesn't materialize, he's 3K, he's not going to bust entirely. We've mentioned this before. If your 3K play busts, you're down 10 points. You can make that up elsewhere in the aggregate. If your $9,800 Jeremiah Love busts, you're toast. So I don't know. I think he's probably going to make my pool just because I can't resist. It just seems like such a novelty that I got to try it, and then it's going to be really cool if it wins money. But it just, man, it's weird. It's such a weird story.
Yeah. Darren, I will say he was 3 for 4 for 46 yards and a touchdown. He had the highest quarterback rating. It was double what Flores was. He had a 97.7 quarterback rating. Flores has just been awful.
Yeah, I really think that their season was derailed by the injury to House Haney. I thought Haney was going to be that guy. Looked fairly good, like a competent quarterback in the first half of the very first game, and then there goes your season. All right, so let me get to my 2 now. So I've got 2 that kind of stand above the rest for me, and they're going to kind of continue on themes that I've kind of already mentioned. First one is going to be Michael Jackson of Purdue. So obviously, if you played week 1, you remember he made everybody all the money when he was 3K, and he was Purdue's #1 receiver, and he was great. And guess what? He's continued to be their #1 wide receiver, their most targeted player through the season. And again, I'm going to mention it time and time again, Illinois' got a banged-up secondary. They're really exploitable through the air right now. We just saw Mekhi Lemon go off for 40 DraftKings points against them. You don't need 40 from Michael Jackson, but you can definitely feel pretty good if he gets you about 15 here on this slate.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jackson. Anytime, same thing with Ship. Anytime you're getting the #1 receiver on a team and that kind of volume with under 4K, that's a nice steal. The only thing I'll mention is because Huncho talked about this before the show with me, is it's a sandwich game for Purdue because you have on the road at Notre Dame, they're coming off a bad loss. Notre Dame just outplayed them. And then they're at home for Illinois, but then they got to go on the road to Minnesota the next week. But they are off a bye, so they should have a little bit better game plan for Illinois too. So that's just my case there. I'm still going to have them. I'm still going to have them in my pool.
So the other one that I like, I'm going to a different game here. We haven't mentioned a whole lot from this game yet. In fact, I don't even know if you got them on your list here. You might not. That's okay. I like Malachi Fields from Notre Dame. You just look at Boise. Boise just gives out explosives. They gave him out to Air Force. They gave him out to South Florida. And if anybody in the Notre Dame offense is going to break off explosives, it's either going to be Jeremiah Love or it's going to be Malachi Fields. And so I think that Fields at $3,800, he gets you 1 deep touchdown or just 2 deep catches that don't go for a touchdown. I think that Fields could instantly pay dividends in that regard. And I see Selena in the chat saying Great House. I don't think that's a bad shout either. Great House is another guy that you can, in this Notre Dame offense, can break off explosives. And who knows, maybe if you play a Fields or a Great House, they're the ones that get the explosives, not Jeremiah Love. Maybe that's the leverage you need in order to win some cash and some GPPs.
Yeah, and playing Fields is definitely going to be different. Playing either one of them, because currently, and Faison is coming in at the third highest ownership on receivers.
Really?
Yeah.
So on mine, they've got him as fifth.
Yeah, they have Jackson as fifth on what I look at.
Yeah, pretty close.
Hank Beatty is at fourth, which I don't even really want him. I don't know about you, but I've just not been excited about him.
He's probably going to make the pool, but not a significant part of it, because I'm just going to have stacks of that game. So if you have stacks of that game, it makes a lot of sense to have him. I think Altmaier's too expensive, so I would be playing that game through the Illinois wide receivers.
And so one thing to mention, since he's the same price, I don't know if he's on there. Yeah, he's on there. Is to get leverage off of Jackson Chalk is Caleb Goody, especially if you're not playing Allen, because Allen's going to be probably popular from last week, and he's scored 37 DraftKings points over the last 2 games himself. So that's another cheap one.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad shout either. Just that Cincinnati offense, like we kind of keep coming back to it. Like they're all so affordable. I think they're going to be able to have their yards however they want it, which is good for volume purposes. And then as long as you can find the touchdowns, you're going to be in really good shape. I like the Cincinnati offense this week. And I think it's been mentioned in the chat. I don't know if we mentioned it directly, but Iowa State is playing with a ton of injuries, including to their 2 starting corners. So that's huge. That's going to be really tough.
And then Joe Royer, Huncho mentioned him. I keep waiting for them to get the tight end more involved, and I don't know what the deal is. He was a stud last year.
Great last year.
Yeah, and then I don't know what the deal is.
It's because I drafted him a lot in best ball. That's exactly why he's failing.
Because he's only getting like 2 catches a game. I mean, he had 100 yards against Bowling Green. He had 2 touchdowns against Northwestern State, but the volume's just not there anymore.
No, it's puzzling. It makes you feel like he's due. Like we've kind of seen week in, week out. Like it was 2 weeks ago with McAllister, right? Where, it's this guy that we expect him to be a big part of the offense. He's not for a few weeks, and then bam, 50 fantasy points from McAllister. I don't expect 50 from Royer, obviously, but he could absolutely turn in a big time performance for that salary without a whole lot of difficulty.
And then one more guy that I just see a little bit over there is Eli Stowers for Vandy.
Yes,
he's another cheap guy.
I think if I'm playing anybody from Vandy, it's going to be Stowers. I just go back to this, they're going to run the RPOs, they're going to run zone reads, they're going to run play action, get Pavi out of the pocket. Who does that really play into the hands of? It really plays into the hands of Stowers. And just getting the ball in his hands on these RPOs, these play actions, I just think it's a great schematic fit for him.
Yeah, and he's just a consistent floor, about 12 points. He's getting that volume, which is like we talked about in cash games. You want that volume because Jackson sounds like a great play on paper, but it's not something that you really want to go to in cash unless he was getting a lot more. Like if we got a report tomorrow and they said, okay, Jackson is QB1 and we get that before lock, and so his ownership goes way up.
Yeah.
But when the ownership's not there and we're just playing off of the guessing game, that's not what you really want to do in cash, other than the fact that he's min price and not going to really kill you. Depends on what you get.
I don't have all the kickoff times memorized. Does Oklahoma State play at noon, or are they later?
Yeah, they play at 2. So we're probably not going to get anything. But and it's not on the afternoon slate because it have to be 2:30 to get on the afternoon slate.
Right. And you're mentioning Central Time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be 3 Eastern, 2 Central. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because you could be looking at a situation where almost like if you had some cheapies in the 3:30 games, right? Like a Malachi Fields. I know he plays at 3:30. maybe one of the cheap Texas guys like a Emmett Mosley or Parker. You wouldn't want to. I don't know. That's not a good play. But if you had cheapies in the 330 games and you got news that Jackson was the starting quarterback, you could just do global swap onto him, right?
Yeah.
Like you could get a ton of Sam Jackson exposure if you got that news, as long as you had value plays in your roster that you could swap to.
Yeah, and speaking of that, one thing I want to mention that I don't think we've mentioned on the show yet before is because it's always good to just have a reminder, making sure that your super flex and your flex are the late start times.
Yes.
Unless you're playing both 11 o'clock quarterbacks. But because you never know, like everything's fine. And then all of a sudden we get a report 5 minutes before a game that, like Jeremiah Love's randomly out or something. And then you're scrambling around. And if he's locked in at running back, then it kind of affects it.
Mm-hmm. We got Darren in the chat. What is your favorite Samuel L. Jackson movie, Snakes on a Plane? Oh gosh. I really loved him in the new well, it's not new anymore, but like the remake of King Kong. Have you seen that one? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so it came out like 8 or 9 years ago. It was like Kong Skull Island, I think was the name of it. He was like this soldier that was like obsessed with killing King Kong, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It also had one of the dumbest death scenes in a movie ever. I'm not going to spoil it, but this guy completely died for no reason. All right. Anyway, got Alvin. Do you guys always single stack QB? Depends on the situation. I generally build lineups with at least one quarterback wide receiver stack, just because I think most quarterbacks you want to play with at least one. I think there's some quarterbacks where you might even want two, like a Josh Hoover type for TCU. I generally play him with two. I think this slate you could make an argument to play Sawyer Robertson with two, but I don't think that's necessary. I definitely think you could play Sorsby with two if you wanted to, but I don't think I necessarily always have to single stack, but I do want to majority of my lineups have a single stack.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same single stack. I just don't love doing the double stack because it's like San Jose State, they had 3 guys go for 100 yards last week.
Yeah.
So if it's offense like that that's throwing 60 times a game and they have the volume to get there, but a lot of times with just these normal offenses that are more 50-50 split on pass and run, it's usually just one guy that just goes off, unless they're cheap. Like with Rocco Beck, you can I forgot that he wasn't on there, so I just added him. Chase Soul is almost min price. He's 3,200, and then Brahmer's 3,300. So it makes it really easy to stack two whenever they're both cheap like that.
By the way, I just looked. Have you seen the Byron Brown stat line?
No. I know he had 3 touchdowns passing and 100 yards rushing last time I looked.
He's at 46 DraftKings points right now.
Yeah, because Charlotte kind of stayed a little bit in that game.
They stayed in it enough for him to keep going, is what they did. And then the overhead. That's the only bet I had on that game was the over. So, yay. My team got blown out, but at least my bet hit.
Neptune still with just 1 catch.
That's disappointing. I was big on Neptune tonight. All right. So, anyway, let's wrap this thing up with the core. So, Zach, you've got your core 4 in here. When I was talking to you earlier, we overlap on one. The other guys that are in your core, though, are all going to make my pool. Who you got?
So, Mahdi, I've already talked about with Oklahoma State. Probably one of, if not the worst defenses in college football right now.
Mm-hmm. Certainly the power.
Yeah, and it's just too cheap for a guy that's going to get like 20, 25 carries and then also possibly catch a few passes, and they allow 250 yards a game on the ground. And again, like we've talked about all day with these running backs and these cheap guys like Becht and Mahdi at 6,100, everyone's like, oh, well, what if Love gets 35? Okay, well, that's barely 3x at his price. Whenever Mahdi, if he gets 35, we're talking 6 or 7x. And so it's just a slate like we kind of talked about. There's so many guys, so many running backs in the 6 to 7,500 range that are just great. And so Fafita, he hasn't been great, and so they're going to rely on running backs to get the game going.
Right.
And then Becht, it's just way too cheap. It probably doesn't matter who he was playing this week. I would be playing him at that price.
Yeah.
Because he's one of those guys that's not just he's not a sexy guy, but again, like we talked about, at 20 plus DraftKings points every single week at this price, that's about almost 4x.
Yeah, if he were to get 24, it'd be the same as Arch Manning getting 36. Put it that way.
Yeah,
points per hour perspective.
And then Lacey's going to be very high owned because of his price, and just between the volume that him and Bell have, but he's almost 2,000 less than Bell. And he did have a good game last year against Virginia, didn't score a touchdown. But again, one thing to think about with these guys, you're like, oh, well, they don't have a touchdown yet. Well, that means positive regression is coming. And then guys like Love and Price, who are getting 3-4 touchdowns a game, negative regression is coming. Like you mentioned, going back to Notre Dame, everyone's going to be chasing Love because he's been going crazy. Well, this could be the game that Fields and Faison get touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And Carr has 5 touchdowns. And so it's just something to think about there. And then the last guys, as the guy we both have, is Dylan Edwards.
Yep.
Just because
we're sharing Dylan Edwards this week. That's my guy, my ride or die running back this week.
And as I mentioned, he's probably going to see the same amount of volume, if not even more than Love, for 2,300 less. And Love, Price could come in the red zone. Carr can throw passes. Baylor gave up a bunch of yards to Oklahoma State. Every single game, look at that. 157 to Oklahoma State, 179 to Arizona State, 163 to SMU, and Harden had 3 touchdowns. Auburn ran for 304 rushing touchdowns. And even Samford, who only scored 7 points and had to be game scripted out of the running game, still almost ran for 100 yards.
So did you know that when you look at Baylor's schedule, if you just stacked both sides of every Baylor game so far, I'm pretty sure that would be profitable. Now, granted, you'd have to pick the right Baylor receiver, but every Baylor game, somebody on the other side's going off, somebody for Baylor's going off. And we got Darren in there. Avery could ultra TD from Edwards. Absolutely, he could, which is why I think he's got to be considered in play as well. Like I said, if you just stack both sides of the Baylor game, it's probably been profitable for the entire season. So, Edwards is the core play. Definitely going to have some Johnson. Kind of like recurrent theme here that I've been saying is, if you really like a guy, don't be afraid to play the other guy from that same offense, because if you like a guy, it's probably because the offense is going to score some points, right? And what if the offense scores some points and the other guy does it? So I really like the idea of playing Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards. Probably not together, though, for me.
Yeah, and the thing is, he can vulture from him, but it's not going to hurt you nearly as bad as a vulture for Love. Because if you look at the games, Love hasn't been he's only had 2 games over 90 yards rushing. It's all been touchdowns. And Edwards, I'm pretty sure he's going to go for 100 yards here. And so if he gets 100 yards and 1 touchdown, that still pays off for GPP. But if he gets 2 or 3, he's going to smash. And so I'm not getting off. I'm not getting off Edwards. And I know Darren's mentioning Haynes, but again,
I don't mind Haynes.
Yeah, I don't mind him, but Edwards is 500 less for a lot better game environment. Than Michigan games are just, and like we mentioned, he's had to have a 60-plus rushing, one big play every single time to basically.
Now, maybe I'm the fool. I am going back to Love here this slate. I don't know if he's going to be a core play. He's going to be a big part of it, just because he's scoring a lot of touchdowns, but I just think that's how Notre Dame is going to do it, and I think that they can run all over Boise. And maybe if he doesn't get the touchdowns, maybe it burns me, but I just got this feeling he's going to have another big game.
Yeah, I don't hate Love. It's just when guys get up there in the price, I need them to perform like Genty did last year.
Yeah, it's definitely a different vibe than 2024 Genty or 2023 Ollie Gordon, where they were getting the rock like 40 times a game and running for like 170 yards every single game. Like, it's definitely a different vibe. But Love, as an explosive player in an offense that's going to score a ton of touchdowns, it just feels like it's going to happen again. And now, granted, like you made a great case. It's a narrow pathway, but there is a pathway. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Core 4. We're a little over an hour, so it's good timing. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. So, Zach, any final thoughts on the Week 6 slate before we wrap it up?
Final thoughts, probably just making sure I don't have too much exposure to one guy. That's something that I always struggle with, is trying to go all in on guys, or like 80% on guys. Even though I'm more of a heavy cash game, you still want to get exposure with so many games. And we gave you so many options for running back, quarterback, receiver. There's no reason to not try to get exposure.
I don't think there's any reason to lock bud somebody in college football DFS or college basketball DFS. Bottom line, there's just so much that could go wrong.
Unless they're min price and they're probably going to be 90% owned or something like that. Like Michael Jackson was like week 1 or whatever.
Yeah, that was the only time I ever regret. Like, that was real obvious. Why didn't I go 90% as opposed to like the 70 that I had? Like, it felt like, dang, I really that was easy. Why didn't I just take the layup? But yeah, I'm with you on that. So anyway, that is going to close us out. We've gone for an hour and 11 minutes. We've got over 30 people watching. Glad to have this many people here on a Friday night. Before you go, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want access to the sheet, go follow Zach on Twitter at Big Country DFS. If you want to hop in either of the Discord, Zach's got his. We've also got one we're in together, the Fantasy Corner. Go check those out as well. Links are in the description. And then, make sure you're subscribed. That way you can join us next week, which is probably going to be on Thursday. So make sure, if you want to join us for that, if you're subscribed, you'll know when it goes down. We do have one last question from Darren. It says, what do you need to work on for a playoff run in high school this season?
Yeah, so with Texas, I think it's kind of stupid, but the top 4 from every district make the playoffs. And a couple years ago, we only had 4 teams in the district. So teams that won one game a year were going to the playoffs and getting smacked. Thankfully, our district's a little bit bigger. We got 6 teams, but basically you just have to win 2 games and you can make the playoffs. And so just trying to get guys rested up, because we're kind of being like Baylor right now, on fire on offense on all cylinders, but then defense giving up tons of yards. So yeah. But some of that is due to, we lost a linebacker to season-ending surgery, and then we lost another linebacker to high ankle sprain, so he missed the last 3 weeks. So once we get that guy back, it should be a little bit better.
Yeah. So, and I think I mentioned this to you last week. Last week this week had the tryouts for the girls' flag football team coach, right? So is one of the reasons why it's been a super hectic week. Well, first off, they changed all the classes that I teach at school 5 weeks in the semester, which is not optimal to be told that, hey, you're going to teach 2 entirely different math classes the rest of the semester. But secondly, it's been my tryouts week for this team, right? I can keep 25. Do you know how many individual girls came out to try out?
I think we talked about that a little bit, and it was like,
it's more. It got more.
Oh, more?
It got more. It was 35 a week ago, and then this week, as we finished it, it peaked.
50?
55. So I cut over half of them that tried out. And I went from being like very well liked to instantly not liked the second I sent that email to them, letting them know who was on the team and who wasn't. So, which stinks, but we got 25 really athletic girls out there, and hopefully we're going to go make a run this year. So we'll see.
And maybe have another team next year, have 2 teams or something.
I would love to do that, but Lord knows I don't have the time to coach both of them. If I could find somebody else at my school to coach the second team, I would, and I would roll with that, because it'd be great to have like a developmental program, because a lot of them that came out are like freshmen and sophomores that it's like, if you played this for 3 years, you'd probably get pretty good at it. But I can't keep you because you're not one of the best 25 right now. Darren said, I bet that was difficult email. Yeah, so last year we did it in person, which was horrible. And we basically split them into 3 groups, and one group was the group that was getting cut because that was kind of how the math worked out. And so I cut that group, and then other 2 groups on the complete opposite sides of the field, and then walked over there and told them that they made the team. And they naturally, none of them thought they made the team. They thought they were getting cut too. So they were on pins and needles the entire time I'm walking over there. And so this year I'm like, you know what? We're after tryout, we're going to send everybody an email just saying, hey, you made the team, practice this tomorrow morning, or hey, thanks for your interest, you didn't make the team. And so that's what we rolled with. And, there's no good way to do that. There's no good way to cut somebody from a team. So if anybody does come up with a good way to cut somebody from a team, let me know. It's just not a good way to do it. Yeah, Darren says, make sure you tell the Michael Jordan story about getting cut in high school. I love that. Although, I will say the one athlete that I can reference and know that all the girls know. Do you know where I'm going with this, Zach?
Maybe.
There's one athlete right now that every girl knows.
Oh, yeah.
And he's an NFL player. And he plays tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Yeah. I can tell them, hey, you're going to run this route like Travis Kelce. Ooh, cool. Like Travis. That's nice. Yeah. It's funny. It's funny like that. But yeah, they might know the Michael Jordan story, but they definitely know there's a Travis Kelce getting cut story. They'd love it. Maybe I'd have to make that up, invent that off the dome. Hey, Travis Kelce once got cut. All right. Anyway, we've been bantering for a while, but definitely appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Hopefully we gave you guys some winners here on the live show and help you guys win some money tomorrow on the DFS main slate. I love Saturdays because it's just so much fun to sweat it out all day. It's just an absolute blast, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Hopefully we gave you guys the goods. But thank you guys for tuning in to us. We're going to go ahead and roll on out. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.